Welcome to Reading the Gospels Together for Monday, May 18th, and today we begin our journey through the Gospel of Luke. And today and tomorrow we're going to have some background, and then we're going to begin our chapter-by-chapter study. Now, for those who participated in our Investigators Gospel Bible Study, which we began in September 2019, if you can remember back when we were able to gather together and fill our hall, these first two sessions are going to be a brief review. So first of all, Luke. Who is he? Well, in short, he's the author of the third gospel and the book of the Acts of the Apostles in the New Testament, and he's also a close friend and traveling companion of the Apostle Paul. Paul called him beloved physician, which gives us an idea of Luke's service to Paul. And Luke also referred to his own journeys with Paul and his missionary as companion many times throughout the book of Acts, often in the first person. And he was with Paul during Paul's imprisonments in Caesarea and in Rome. And shortly before his martyrdom, Paul wrote that only Luke is with me. Now, the early church writers, Jerome and Eusebius, Jerome writing around 400, Eusebius writing around 300, both of them identified Luke as being from Antioch. And Luke's interest in Antioch is clearly seen in his many references to that city throughout the book of Acts. Luke adopted Philippi as his home, remaining behind there to superintend the young church while Paul went on to Corinth during the second missionary journey. Now, Paul distinguished Luke from those he calls of the circumcision, meaning that Luke was not Jewish and therefore was a Gentile. Tradition holds that he was Greek, and so, of course, would have been very helpful in the Greek city of Philippi. The circumstances of Luke's conversion are not revealed. Now, an early source talking about Luke supplies a fitting epitaph for him. It says, "He served the Lord without distraction, having neither wife nor children, and at the age of 84 he fell asleep in Boeotia, central Greece close to Athens, full of the Holy Spirit." Now, when we say somebody died, we refer to them as having passed. In the New Testament, the gentle way of saying died is to say that they fell asleep. Now, that's who Luke is. Now, some details about when and where he wrote his gospel, which we very, very fortunately and blessedly have today. He probably wrote his gospel around 60, 61, maybe even as late as 62 AD. And perhaps he got the start when he was staying with Paul during Paul's lengthy imprisonments in Caesarea, which we read about in Acts 23, and in Rome, which we read about in Acts 28. Now, this date of between 60, 61, 62 AD is fairly close to the time that the other two synoptic gospels were written. Mark around 55 to 60, and Matthew probably also around 60. And Paul mentioned in both the letters of Philemon and in 2 Timothy that Luke and Mark were together, lending strong credence to Luke having access to Mark's gospel as a primary source. Now, tradition describes both Luke and Matthew as residents of Antioch, as we've said earlier, and that makes Luke's use of Matthew's early Hebrew language gospel, as well as Matthew's translation, very natural. So most likely, Luke took advantage of the prolonged imprisonment of Paul, both in Caesarea and in Rome, to collect information relating to Jesus' life and to record Paul's memories of his 4 missionary journeys that had spanned the previous decade. Now, another strong case for early dating, in addition to the abrupt ending of Acts, again prior to Paul's execution sometime between 62 and 64, is that Luke's book of Acts of the Apostles, which is in your New Testament right after the Gospel of John, tells the story of the early church, but it makes no mention of the Jewish revolt against Rome, which began in 66 AD, or the destruction of Jerusalem, which occurred in 70 AD. Now, that Jewish revolt began in Caesarea, which had been home base for Paul and Luke for some years. It's inconceivable that Luke wouldn't have mentioned this. It's very inconceivable that Luke would not have mentioned the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Now, Luke reported Jesus' predictions that Jerusalem would be utterly demolished, and mentioning the fulfillment of Jesus' prophecy would have been vital for making the case of the prophetic power of Jesus. So while Luke, to the best of our knowledge, was not an eyewitness of Jesus, he was nevertheless, he was a close companion of Paul. He was a co-worker of Mark. He was a fellow member of the Christian community in Antioch with Matthew. And as we shall see, he was quite possibly a first-hand interviewer of none other than Mary, the mother of Jesus. Now that makes Luke a very, very important source for helping us to understand the person and the ministry of Jesus, as well as the experience of the very first Christian communities. I'm really looking forward to reading through Luke with you. Now, tomorrow we're going to discover how Luke went about writing his gospel and the picture of Jesus that he sets out to paint. And in order for you to prepare for that, I encourage you to read just the first 4 to 6 verses of the Gospel of Luke. In the first 4 verses, he's going to set out for us how he went about writing his gospel. He's unique among the gospel writers in doing this. So that's important information for us to have. I look forward to seeing you then. Enjoy your Victoria Day weekend.